So as a probate professional, I'm in real estate. I often have customers, prospective customers who need help getting things organized. There's a bunch of stuff. What do we do with it? Do we junk it out? Do we sell it? Are there valuables? How do you know if they're valuable or not? And so it's great to have a professional help you as part of your team or part of the customer's team to help organize that effort and process. I'm really excited. I met through another colleague in her business. I met Joan McCreary online and wanted to share with her today as a resource in the kind of estate and home organizing space. Joan, thanks so much for making time for us today.
Be in your circle of resources.
So first off, you're in Northern California. Where are you located?
Yeah, I am in the San Jose area. So I work primarily in the southern half of the San Francisco Bay Area.
Okay. And kind of describe your product or service offering. What is it? I know generally what you do, but give me a little more clarity on what you do within the estate and home organizing space.
Absolutely. So my company helps people who are overwhelmed, don't understand what to do with their stuff. Sometimes this is people who are living in their homes, they're aging in place, or they're recovering from some major incident in their life, whether it's a move or a health issue, or someone's moved in with them as a new roommate. They've got to make space. But more often than not, it's people who are leaving their space and trying to get ready for it. So we work with so many people who are trying to figure out what to do with their stuff, whether to take it, to leave it, and if they leave it, what's going to happen to it. So it's a big problem if you haven't been through that exercise in a long time, and knowing what's in the marketplace, what the demands are, who's willing to take things, but whether it's for donation or for sale.
So I work in this space all the time, and just the nature of probate people doing estate planning, getting ready and moving out and going into adult care and to passing and inheriting. And I think I get so shocked by what I see. Just literally yesterday, I came back to my wife and said, hey, we need to do this, this, and this, this weekend to get it done. I'm very much up to date on getting rid of everything we don't need, because it is a challenge as you get older. You accumulate more, you're physically able to do less. And I think people often will, with shame, say, oh, my mother or father was a hoarder. And the answer is not really, maybe, but maybe they just got older and it was work and it was just something they couldn't keep with and it kind of got out of control. Is that your experience? Or
Bill, you have a really keen insight. That is a perspective that not a lot of people are able to synthesize, I think. You're absolutely right. When the more you have, the harder it is to maintain. You only have so much time and energy. But also when you're older, the mind is changing, how you perceive your environment is changing, and your physical ability, whether it's just your muscles and joints or it's your energy level, can't maintain it. I think people have a misunderstanding of what hoarding is. That hoarding behavior is usually has to do with excessive accumulation and the extreme resistance to discarding. And most people just don't get around to it. They just tend to get things through inheritance or purchases or gifts or whatnot. There are certainly people who have a more extreme behavior set in excessive shopping, excessive collecting, not maintaining what they think is a collection. And so that's something that we have to review when we get to that probate level of clear out, where we just don't know what's there. And now we've got this big job of digging out and making sense of it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in hoarder homes where literally and now I'm a big guy. I couldn't walk in the house to get to the back to do an inspection. I had to turn sideways and scoot because things were literally piled to the ceiling and there was a small little aisleway. That's a hoarder.
That's that is more of a hoarding situation. Yeah.
Yeah. What happens, I think, in elder cases and there's another situation where people kind of move out in phases, and somebody's living there and doesn't want to throw the other person's property out, rightfully so, both for financial reasons and for emotional reasons. You might think, hey, mom's got a lot of extra clothes, I'll get rid of them. But there's the emotional side. Mom's going to ask for that one item, and we don't want to confront that. And so it's a challenge to find that right space. So how do you get brought into the process? I mean, I know this isn't just a charity, this is a business for you, though you're of service to people. Who brings you in and what does that look like?
Right. So we're usually brought in by a real estate professional such as yourself, professional fiduciaries, estate attorneys are a regular one, and then other trustees or probate administrators who might have been an accountant. It might be a family member. But most of the time it is going to be the professional who is reaching out to us to try to make sense of what to do. Get this house cleared, because usually the money is in the property, not in the contents, but you don't know what you don't know. And having someone who can thoughtfully go through the contents and find the paperwork. That's one of the first things we do on the job, actually, is find the paperwork. Often a probate is a probate because they haven't found a trust. And so if we can find trust paperwork, then we can get out of that probate cycle and go about it a little differently.
Yeah.
So that's usually how we start.
So Roach, like me, might call and say, hey, I have a friend and they lost their parents and we think it's been probate. They filed the paperwork, but we're not there yet, but they also need to handle that. Is there a consult fee? Is there initial cost up front? Do you go in and analyze the situation? And then at what point are you engaged, and how does that process work?
Right. So the way my business operates is we usually do start with a consultation. So that's a paid hourly fee. And then once we move into the further efforts of the project where we're bringing in a team, we also do charge hourly, but it's at a much lower rate. So I'm going to go in there as the expert and advise the family or the trustee about what needs to be done and what some strategies are to go about it. Once they get their decisions made about how they can do it, and once they get their papers, right? Because we can't go and get rid of anything until that authorization from the courts is in place or the trust has been found.
And then do you find that the fee is most often paid by the family? Do you think is it more often paid by the attorney or the realtor?
Right. It's a real mix of things. Occasionally we do just get paid out of the escrow fees. So if we can find a realtor or broker who can front the fees for us, we of course prefer that than waiting till escrow closes. But the fees are almost always paid by the estate, right? The family, if there are funds if there's a real estate, then there's almost always funds to pay for our services one way or another out of the estate.
The initial consult fee is how much?
Mine is $135.
Well, that's very reasonable. So if I had a regular attorney I was working with, I'd be glad to pay for that every time to really delegate to you what I've been doing kind of as an amateur or as a, part-time in your field. And I don't mean to play in your field. It's just somebody's got to do it. Do you find, or I imagine that there's a variance, is there a percentage of cases where you're able to, let me back up. So you organize, you find the paper. Do you also arrange for the sale of property? Are you involved in the estate sale?
We do soup to nuts, so to speak. We sometimes are the first person in the door. An attorney may say, here's the keys. Can you go over with and be the person who's accompanying the family as they walk through, because we need an impartial observer. I mean, it can be as early as that, but all the way through what we call the discovery, figuring out what is there to know and what do we have here so we can make some decisions, and then doing the clear out. We have several strategies for clearing out properties, from doing an online auction, which is a pretty efficient way to liquidate everything, including the very hard to move items, and also recovering some funds to at least partially cover the cost of the clear out.
Right.
Then we have some other creative techniques for quickly moving content out without a lot of expense. So we can provide several different strategies for each property.
In my experience, that once the families remove things they can easily remove, right? If there's cash, of course, or collectibles or jewelry, and assuming they take those with them, that if you can get the rest of the stuff to pay for a clean out, you're pretty lucky. Like, that doesn't always happen.
In fact, the jewelry is one of the things that usually helps pay for the clean out. So I encourage families to talk to me about what they're taking and why. If they don't take it for their own personal enjoyment, that's great. But if they're taking it because they think it's valuable, then how are they going to resolve that? How are they going to recoup the value? And usually I have much better resources than they do for that.
And then do you handle more obscure items as well as part of the process? If there's junked cars or leftover cars or unlicensed motorcycles, boats, and those kind of things, do you manage?
We do have resources for all of those. So we have a pretty strong resource list for how to get rid of very unusual items. We do everything from the medical equipment and kind of special, getting rid of hospital beds. We have geriatric care managers that we connect with who've got patients all over the place that need these materials. So yes, we can do it all one way or another.
How do you set expectations for family? You know, for me, I look at stuff and you see, well, retail, if you're to sell it, you know, I had an occasion where the customer had some, you know, professional machinery like drill press and things, you know, if you're a handy guy, things that would be valuable. Well, if you're paying for it, you know, you might pay one price. If you're getting rid of it and nobody shows up, you're going to get a lower price. And I try to explain to my customer, we were lucky to sell it for enough to cover the storage and removal because her family wanted to keep it. We stored it for 3 months and they said, no, get rid of it. And I got enough to cover all that expense. And she thought, well, I thought it was worth another $10,000. And I said, well, there was nobody who was willing to pay $10,000. So how do you set expectations on what these things are worth? Because they're not, they see the for sale signs, but that's not what necessarily they're going to receive.
Right. You're exactly right. So I usually advise it's about 10 to 20% of retail, assuming it's in really good condition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now there are exceptions. And because we sell through our online auctions, constantly. In fact, we've done, I think 15 or 16 to date, and it's mid-June, just this year. We see what people are paying. It's a very competitive process, the online auction process. So you get pretty close to market price, right? This is going to be the best anybody's going to pay for something. And we see things like beautiful china cabinets, $0. There are things that people, you know, you're not going to even get 10% of what you paid for it because there's just not a market for some of these items. On the other hand, you're going to see vintage Pyrex bowls going for a set of 4 for $70, which is going to be 4 times what they were paid for right back in the 70s. So it's it really depends on what the market will bear. But we
big, beautiful off-brand pianos. If you can get somebody to take it for free, I think you're lucky. Is that about right?
We're lucky, yeah. There are certain things that we look for in a house when we go in right away. Pianos are one of them because they can be hard to move. But we've been lucky to get connected, and we actually have a grand piano that just sold in our auction last night for $800, and I was super excited. It's a very cheap price for a grand piano that actually has a lot of history behind it. But I was thrilled to sell that. Pianos, desks, sofas, china cabinets. Those are some of the hardest ones to move.
And we can't sell a piano. What's it cost you to get rid of it? About $800, right?
Well,
I mean, you're
not quite that much, but yeah, I can. I've only sent in my 10 years of doing these clear outs, I've only sent 1 piano to the dump.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, have a couple hundred pianos. So we find homes.
But you price them right because my customer was worth $3,000 or $4,000. Well, to you, take it. If it's worth $3,000 or $4,000, keep it, enjoy it. But the rest of the world's not lining up to pay $3,000.
So people will usually hold on to, if they really can't stomach letting things go for free or really cheap, I find that families end up holding on to them. And they just can't quite get there yet to that acceptance level. That's okay.
Yeah. Do you also handle at the end the junk out? Is that part? You have a vendor that does that? I
have several vendors who do that. Yeah, and we usually have discounted prices that if the client is going on their own, they're gonna pay more than if they go through us. But we also don't mark up our vendors. So that's something that's different about us. We just pass through costs. So we'll pay for the hauling. We'll pay for the shredding. We just charge for our time.
I had a case where among 15 other things, we had both guns, like 20, I think. And then we had several that were unregistered guns. That's a whole nother. So we had a gun dealer come in to help with the guns and the ammunition, which was worth, in this case, a lot of money. But then he also said, well, these have the serial numbers filed off. all I can do there is tell you to call the sheriff and they'll come pick them up for you for free. What's the wildest stuff you've been involved with? You can share with us a story.
Well, that's a great question. I'll tell you my best story ever is that we had a client with buried treasure, and nobody knew that he had that. He passed away, and his accountant had known all of his affairs and had assured us that we didn't need to keep any paperwork. But our process is we look at everything. And in the course of looking through a file cabinet, buried in a file with other brochures was a envelope that said, "Open after I'm gone." And it was dated 1987. So I took it to the trustee. We opened it together, and there was a letter that this gentleman had buried 2 big 2-foot-long capsules somewhere on his property. And he gave vague references to where they were. So we were able to find them. They were buried quite far under the earth, but fortunately we did find the marks and reference points, and it was almost $500,000 in silver and gold.
Ooh, very nice. Okay. So the moral story is look through all the paperwork.
Yep.
Fantastic. Well, look, Joan, you're one of those people, I'm in the business too, that, that you can tell a professional who deals in probate and estates in that they don't just share problems, they brag about them. And so I can tell by the way you share that story, how proud you are. For people who want to get in touch with you, you have a great website, jmpoestate.com. Is that the best way to get a hold of you? Or if somebody's interested and wants to have a
That's a great way. There's a contact us button. You can just send us an email through that. You can call or email directly. Text, that number that's on our website is also a cell. So you can text my team. We'd be happy to talk to anybody who has questions or just is trying to figure out what they don't know, what they need to know in the process of managing the stuff.
Well, Joan, I appreciate the chance. I know you were co-sponsoring, I think, an event with a vendor in Los Angeles I've used as well and have interviewed. But part of my team is in Northern California. We just expanded and added a new great probate attorney / realtor in he's actually in Berkeley. So not quite where you are, but there's some good overlap there. So I appreciate the chance to meet with you today. I really appreciate your time. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Bill. Great to have you.